guys, how's it going? So my goal for today is to get all of our tomatoes planted. If we have extra time, we'll plant our peppers as well, but tomatoes, if we can get those done, I will be happy, because I wish it was as easy as just popping them in the ground and watering them and walking away, but we have to set up the whole area, like the irrigation, we have to set the frames, and we've got quite a number of tomatoes to plant. Here are a few of the tomatoes we're going to be planting. This is the area that most of them are going to go in. 21 of them are going to go here. This year we're going to be growing 28 different varieties of tomato, which I'm so excited about. I swore to myself I would never plant that many again, because we definitely don't eat that many tomatoes, but we do give away all of our extra produce, so that's where it goes. But you guys know how it goes. In the middle of winter, when you're planting your garden and you're ordering seeds, it's so easy to end up with so many different varieties, because it's exciting and it's fun to try out different things. So that's what we're going to do this year. I started 52 cells of tomatoes. It's 26 varieties, 2 of each. I did 2 of each just in case one of them kind of pooped out. That way I'd have a backup, but all of them came up and they all look pretty good. So I'll be giving the extra plants away. I actually have 86 plants, tomato plants here on hand, so I'll be finding homes for all the ones we're left with at the end of the day. All that said, 21 of them are going to be going here, 4 are going to be going up in our raised bed garden, and then the other 4 I'm going to find room for probably in one of these rows. And that doesn't count the couple of varieties that we're going to be growing in containers. So I've got Patio Sunshine, we've got Goodhearted, and we've got Cherry Falls. So those are 3 extra varieties that we'll be growing not in the ground but in containers, because they're really small tomato plants. I'll go through all of the varieties we have here when we start to plant. In fact, maybe we can link the video where I initially planted those up. And then a couple of them that I was waiting for, come around to this side, that I didn't have seeds for, the pineapple. I absolutely love the pineapple heirloom tomato. They're beefsteak type and they are so incredibly tasty. These are just a couple that I picked up at the garden center yesterday. Bonny Best, we've got a striped German, and a Brandy Wine. I think I already had Brandy Wine. Didn't I start Brandy Wines? Those certainly look a little bit better than mine. I left mine out on a cold night. They got a little bit dark, the leaves did. But I thought I started a Brandy Wine in here. I don't think I did. That's weird. Well, I'm glad I picked one up. Okay, so let me go over our area out here. You can see that our tomato frames are roughly set up. I had them all lined up. We have to drill holes. We have to aug holes in order for these to go all the way in the ground. So I had them all set up just to make sure I could fit them all here, and then a gust of wind came through and knocked them down. What I'm gonna go for here is 3 rows of 7. We have 27 feet to deal with here, so I figured I could go about 3.85. I rounded down to 3.75 feet. I can place a tomato frame, and I've got 2 different sizes here. We've got, these are Titan tomato frames from Gardener's Supply that we've used for a few years. They really are nice, you guys, because they collapse. Tomato frames can be a complete pain to store, and these come apart. So when they're not anchored in the ground, they seem kind of flimsy, and I was a little worried, to be honest, when I very first set these up the first time we used them. But we do sink them in the ground quite far, which makes them sturdy, and they held up to our wind out here exposed. Like, they're not protected by anything. In fact, the first year we used them, they were out a little bit closer to the house, but still out in the middle of nowhere. There was nothing, no trees, no homes, nothing to break up the wind, and they held. And I honestly didn't think they would, because when you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, they get enormous. I mean, we had some huge tomato plants out here, and they can be quite heavy, and then when you get wind that, you know, is moving that weight around, I thought for sure they were going to take the frames down, and they never did. So that was pretty awesome. So that's the other thing, indeterminate and determinate type tomatoes, which I did go through the different types of tomatoes in our initial planting video of the seeds. But indeterminate tomatoes, you really do want to have a staking system for them, or trellising system, or a frame of some kind, because they will just like kind of keep growing. They're a vining type tomato, and a lot of tomatoes that you plant are indeterminate, which are awesome because they produce tomatoes throughout the whole season. And then there are determinate type tomatoes, which it's still good to have a frame for. Maybe like a shorter one is appropriate for that type of tomato, but they usually don't get very big. They kind of grow to a determined size and then they stop, and they also produce fruit at more in a closer period of time. They don't kind of continue producing all throughout the season. So those are a couple of things to check as you are selecting the type of tomatoes you're going to grow. So out here to prep our ground, we actually worked in a bunch of leaf, like grass clippings and leaf compost. I also have worked in land and sea compost and biotone starter fertilizer. And when I go to plant, I will, oh, look at how nice this is. I will work some fertilizer in too. So you can see that we did work it in with the tiller. We brought the tractor through here and worked it in, but we're gonna use the auger because once you get to the bottom, which this is like an 8 or 10 inch layer of nice fluffy soil, when you get to the bottom of it, you hit hard pan. So we can't push these in very far, like as far as I want to, without the help of an auger. So I did bring this out. We'll attach it to a drill, but what we can do is just zip some holes in the ground right where we need the frames to go and pack soil in around the base, and that should make some pretty quick work of it, I hope. All done, and I think I've got them pretty straight for the most part. I got off on a couple of them, but you know, pretty good. We won't be able to tell here fairly soon once the tomatoes are growing. I have 10 of the tall cages, and then how many does that leave me with? 11 of the shorter cages. Also, you're gonna see Aaron and Paul out here and probably hear the tractor. They're actually working on this front area, the mulched area right in front of the cut flower garden. They're getting it prepped to seed it with grass. The goal is to have all the mulched areas around the cut flower garden as well as the interior seeded with grass at some point, but we have to work on it in small sections because we need to be able to access this area because we have a lot going on in this space. Okay, now that the frames are in, I'm going to work on the irrigation next, and then we'll amend the soil, and then we can plant. This is what I'm going to be using today. This is a 1/2 inch black poly. It does not have emitter holes, it's just a supply line, because what we need to do is bring water from our water source, which is a box in that corner. We'll run a line down this way. So we'll run a line right down here, and then I'm going to tee off, and we'll run a separate line for each row of tomatoes. And then once those lines are run, then I can pop emitters right next to where the plants are going to be. So this is super efficient watering right here. Here are a few of the other various things I'll be using. I've got 1/2 inch clamps, so whenever a coupler is used, we'll clamp the tube onto the coupler. I've got the couplers. I've got figure 8 enders. And then we will be using primarily 1 gallon per hour emitters, and we're just going to pop those straight into the tubing. This is pretty tough poly, so I'll probably use this punch tool right here to make my hole, and then I will put my emitter in. If I'm putting these emitters in like the brown drip tubing, it's such pliable tubing, you can usually just pop it right in without a punch tool. Okay, I'm going to get this part done. Okay, so the irrigation has been run. I didn't hook it up over there yet. I just left it kind of long on the end because they were messing around with the tractor. I'll hook that up later. I like to water them in by hand the first day anyway. But you can see I've got a supply line to each row. And then for each tomato plant, I have 2 emitters, one for either side of the root ball. These are 1 gallon per hour emitters, which that might seem like a lot, but we're gonna actually put these tomatoes on their own zone. So I can water them however much or little I want to. Okay, so anyway, every single one of them is run the exact same way. When I got to the end here, I just curved it instead of putting an elbow, because the more elbows and connections and things you put in, it's just more weak points where you could possibly have leaks. So anyway, it goes all the way from the down there and then swings around and then ends right here. So I did have to put a T-coupler in right there. You can see all the clamps, and then ran it to the end and ended it down there. I did water these just pre-planting because they've been sitting out here, and it's better to plant something that's been well watered rather than a semi-dry root ball. So there's really not a whole lot to the planting part, so we'll just go through one and then I'll go ahead and get the rest of them done. So this one is Bonny Best. This is one of the ones I picked up down at the garden center. It's an heirloom. It says it produces delightful meaty scarlet red globes. I'm gonna put my tag in there. Make a nice big hole. Some people will plant them in a trench. I'll show you that in a second. I need my compost and knee pad at the same time. Okay, so I'm just gonna put a big thing of compost in there, work that in, create our hole, and then we'll take the plant out of the can. We're gonna remove all these lower leaves right here, because tomato plants don't do well if their leaves touch the soil surface or if there are leaves that can get like splashback from watering. So we remove those leaves, and tomatoes will produce roots all up and down their stems, so you can actually bury them quite a lot deeper than the root ball actually is. I'm gonna pinch that sucker out right there. So some people will actually tip them in their hole kind of like this and plant them at an angle so that the stem is underneath the soil. I'll probably just take the hole down as far as I can, plant it a tiny bit more upright. So it'll be about there. Perfect. Okay, just need to do that 20 more times. Got them all done, planted and watered in. So 21 here. I did 2 on the end of our sweet pea rows over there. So I'm just gonna walk down the rows quick. This is kind of for my benefit too, so I can remember what variety is where, just in case one of the tags blow away. And I hope to come along with bigger tags, because these little things get lost real fast. But we've got a Bonny Best. There's a blue cream berries. That's a new one to me. Sweet Apartif. Bosque blue Bumblebee, Campari, Black Prince, and Bellini. Next row in, we've got Green Zebra, which this is the very last time I'm gonna try this variety. If I don't like it this year, I'm not gonna try it again. I think this is my 3rd or 4th time with that variety, and every single year it takes forever for the fruit to form and they never ripen. And we have a super long growing season, so I don't know what the deal is. So this is its last chance. We've got Black Beauty, Sausage. Ooh, this one's kind of buried. What is this? Oh, Costoluto, Genovese. Purple Rain. Dr. Wyche's Yellow. Orange Accordion. Then we've got Pineapple, Brandy Wine, Striped German, Big Boy, Black Strawberry, Beefsteak, and Hill Marmande. Over here, we've got a variety called Spoon, and this one's so cute. It already has tiny little tomatoes on it, kind of like the variety I grew a couple of years ago. I'm growing this one mostly for arrangements because they produce long, stems full of tomatoes. And then this one is Evil Olive. I actually have some Evil Olives already growing on in the greenhouse. I think I've got 7 or 8 tomatoes in there that I've been eating off of. The Goodhearted Tomatoes so far. Evil Olives do have some tomatoes on them. They're not ripe yet, but they were from the ones I started this winter. So I'm gonna leave those in the greenhouse just to see what happens with those. So I've got 23 planted out here. I have 4 more to plant up in the raised beds, so that's 27. And then I have 3 more that are going in containers, so that's 30. Plus the ones in our greenhouse. Before we head up to the raised bed garden though, I am gonna plant peppers out here because this didn't take me as long as I thought it was going to. But I wanna check in with Aaron because I just saw him using the grass seeder he just bought. And I thought it might be interesting to see if it works better than ones we've used in the past. Oh my, look at this. So Paul came through with the tractor and kind of scraped all of the mulch. I don't really wanna walk on it. He scraped all of the mulch away, or most of it. And then they roughed up the top layer of soil, and I can see grass seed already on it.
$25.
What is that?
This is
what brand?
Scott's.
Whiz.
I'm impressed. Okay,
Is that the model name? Is Whiz?
Yeah, I think so.
Whiz. Nice.
So check this out. You put your seed in there, right?
Uh-huh.
I have it set to 5.
Okay. Oh, battery operated.
Yeah, how awesome is that?
Nice. Oh, that's so much more precision than putting it in the big hopper behind the gator.
You can find a spot that you want a little more, you know.
What does the dial look like? How many settings?
It goes from 1 to 9.
Did you start on the lower end?
Goes from 2 to 9. I started at 4, and then I felt like, you know, 5 was a little better.
Good. Uh-huh.
You'd probably want it on something a little even higher for granular fertilizer.
Oh, sure.
Like if we're doing plant tone, or we could do soil acidifier out in areas where it'd be harder to get to.
Sure.
You can't get your...
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other method, my other method is the...
Yeah, toss.
Yeah.
So in the end, we're hoping to have grass to the driveway right here. We'll do this strip later, so it'll still be mulch up to this grass, but we'll let this grow up and develop while we avoid contact with it, so we won't drive or walk on it for a while. But it'll be nice because we can still access the whole flower garden from the side. From this side, this whole strip is open, and then from the back area too, kind of by the orchard. Yeah, we figured that was pretty much the only way we could get it done this year, because you can't really do it all at once. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to garden in here, or we wouldn't have very good access to it anyway. So let's go plant some peppers. I'm going to put them in a different spot than I did last year. I've got an assortment of bell peppers. There's orange, yellow, red, and green, and then I've got some jalapenos, super serranos, and then I picked up an assortment pack down at the garden center, like of sweet peppers. It's called the snack pack. I'm thinking we're going to plant peppers right here this year. We planted them right on the opposite side last year. They did so well. I was amazed at especially our bell peppers last year. They were just huge, had really thick walls, really good flavor. You know, some years and in some different areas too, like in different areas of your garden, you'll get different results, especially with bell peppers, I find anyway. Some years they'll be kind of thin and not quite as sweet, but oh, something about them out here last year, they really loved it. It's a wonder. I mean, you look at our soil that looks so white and just like void of any good thing, but it can grow some good stuff. Of course, that could be the biotone and land and sea talking. I actually picked up a bunch of stakes down at the garden center. Stakes are one thing I rarely think about picking up, but I happened to think about it yesterday. So I'm gonna pound all of these into the ground. I brought out a mallet. It'll be nice because last year we had just like a mishmash of whatever we could find in the barn to hold the peppers up. So it'll be nice to have something kind of uniform. And there's the dahlias. So right next door to the dahlias, they're all planted and hopefully gonna start growing here pretty quick. all done. Planted, watered in, the soil has been amended, stakes are in place. This is what we use right here. It's like a rubber coated twist tie. It's called Slim Soft Tie Hacksnicks is the brand. I don't know. There are other brands. This just happened to be the brand that, Terra Garden maybe. I don't know. Anyway, this just happened to be the brand that was down at the garden center. But you can usually find it in green or tan, and it's just nice and soft and it doesn't damage plants. So as the plants grow, the stakes are already in place. We won't ruin any roots if we tried to put a stake in later, and then we can just cut off pieces of this as we need to. Anyway, I just feel like using the same color stake or the same size of stake just makes it look, I don't know, it goes from looking untidy to looking organized and tidy. I mean, things can be as practical as it can be. I mean, dahlias, we use rope and T-posts, and there's nothing beautiful about those. But when it's all lined up, all organized, I don't even really notice it. Anyway, so let me walk through these. We've got 4 red bell peppers, and I just planted them in a block. They're 18 inches apart. I planted them right by an emitter. So 4 red bells, 4 orange bells, we've got 4 green bells, 4 yellow bells, and then the next 4 are that snack pack. And I put the tag on this side because there wasn't an individual label for each one. So they're labeled A, B, C, D, and it's actually A, B, C, D, and then on the back it tells you what they are. So this one is a sweet cherry, this one's called Jingle Bell, Golden Treasure, and baby chocolate. And then we've got the 4 super serranos and the 4 jalapenos. I have seen questions about whether or not you should plant bell peppers and hot peppers together, like if they would cross and your sweet peppers would then be spicier than normal. I mean, this is just my experience. So you may have experienced something different, but I've never experienced them doing that, like during the first season that you haven't planted. I'm kind of guessing that's if you try to gather seeds and plant them for the next year. And if you plant them the next year, you might have some cross-pollination going on and you could get something kind of weird. But you would get that anyway if you're putting too many varieties close together and trying to gather seeds from them. So that's just my experience. I have no problem putting them in the same row in the same area. They all come up true to form. And I feel like for peppers, the biggest thing is, like the key is moisture, consistency and moisture. And if you have that, I feel like you are just miles ahead with getting peppers that are nice and tasty and juicy and sweet. We water in the summer every single day out here. We have the drip sco, but it's very efficient. You know, we have the plants right by the drip emitters, and we don't have to run them for very long, but just the fact that they get it at the same time every single day and they get the same amount, something about that just makes them super tasty. And I typically don't fertilize again. I probably should, but I do amend fairly heavily, you know, Biotone starter fertilizer, land and seed in the beginning. That's typically all anything gets out here in this big garden, and usually we have pretty fair luck. Okay, last place we need to go is up to the raised beds because we've got 4 more tomatoes to plant. All right, here we are. Everything's looking pretty good up here, filling in beautifully, like really pretty. We've had so much rain this spring. It's just been wonderful. What a gift. Anyway, we've got these new SX square obelisks. These are also from Gardener Supply. We put these in this spring because the ones we had here, we'd had in here for what, 4 years? And they were looking a little worse for wear. They were all bent. But typically I like to put tomatoes in the corners here. I do, you know, rotate it around. Like last year I had tomatoes in that bed and then also in this bed, but I wanted to move them back to the corners here. But the other ones we had before, the reason why they were bent is because they weren't strong enough, and these are much sturdier. So anyway, I've got Garden Gem we're going to put in one, and then we've got Garden Treasure right here, and then we've got Black Krim and Husky Cherry that we weren't able to fit out in the other garden space. So I've got a little bit of weeding to do in here, not much. Oh boy, yep. Okay, so I planted Zeolites calendula in this bed last summer, and we cleaned it out in the fall. Didn't realize it had seeded itself in here like crazy. I also seeded carrots in here this spring as a spring crop, and they're like being choked out by the calendula. I love this calendula, so I'm letting it grow. But we will need to clear out a spot here for our tomato because I don't think this one's gonna push through that huge mat of calendula. Okay, I'm gonna grab my amendments. We're gonna get these in the ground. All right, all done. So we've got a garden gem right here. In this bed, we've got a garden treasure, black Krim in this bed. And then tucked into the calendula, we have a Husky cherry. So up here, the tomatoes will get the same drip as the rest of the bed. The reason why we separated the tomatoes out in the big garden is the time that we had them planted next to all of our vine crops. The vine crops needed quite a bit more water than the tomatoes needed, but at that point in time, we didn't have the ability to split them into 2 zones unless it was manual, which we totally could have done that, but it would have been an everyday remembering to go turn it on and turn it off, that sort of thing. So we just kind of left them on the same zone, and I think each crop would have maybe done better had we had them on separate. So we figured since there are so many out there and we can split it up, we've got an available zone in that corner, we thought we may as well just go ahead and put them on their own irrigation. And that is it for today's project. The best part about all the plants that went into the ground today, other than the fact that it's fun to finally be able to grow these warm season crops, is that there is drip irrigation set up to every single one of them, other than tapping the tomato zone into the box, but I brought the tube right to it. I just need to go grab the parts to do it. You know, so often I do projects where I think I'll remember to run drip to it later, and then I either don't and I forget and think I've already done it, and things either suffer and or die. I've had plants die before because I thought I set the drip up and I didn't take the time to do it. And then if you start tallying up, start adding up all of the minutes that turn into hours very quickly that you're dragging hoses out to things all season long. Oh, if you just remember to set up drip, or, you know, take the time and, you know, put in the effort to set up drip in the beginning, you save yourself so much time in the end. So it's always nice when you just do it. Like right when you're doing the project, even before you put the plants in the ground, get the drip set up, and oh, you thank yourself for the rest of the season. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope that your gardens are waking up and looking beautiful, and we will see you in the next video. Bye. P.S. I totally forgot to show you the plants that I still have. So these are the small ones for containers. So Goodhearted, you can already see tomatoes forming on these. We've got Cherry Falls. Both of these already have tomatoes. I may not keep both of each one of these, but I could. I mean, they're so small. Patio Sunshine right here, little yellow tomatoes. Well, they will be yellow tomatoes. And then this is the tray of extras. So I planted one of everything that's in this tray. So I'm going to be giving these to, well, a couple of family members and then some friends.